Across the Park podcast is proud to be sponsored by Globe Gas and Heating. For the best kitchen and bathroom renovations, boiler servicing and repair, and central and underfloor heating in the Northwest, head over to globecentralheating.com and quote Across the Park for a free quote. Well, welcome back to Across the Park podcast, a bit of a bonus show for you guys this week, back in the amazing Pod Cafe studios in the Baltic Quarter. My name is Ian Mills. If you're new to the channel, first of all, welcome. A few buttons below, subscribe, like, and a share button. If you can do that for us, that would be great. I'm joined by a very special guest returning to the podcast for, I think, the third time. I always have a great podcast and we always get a lot out of her. And she's come back on today. It is my friend Julie Clarke from the Fan Advisory Board. Julie, thank you for coming back on. How are you doing?
Thanks for inviting me on. Doing very, very well, thank you, especially after an away win at last.
An away win. I spoke to Melanie Harvey yesterday in the show and we both just summarised life is better when Everton win.
Oh, there's nothing sweeter than an away win, is there?
Life is better. Yeah. So you know the drill by now. I ask you lots of questions. You try and give the answers. We've collated some social media questions that we think some fans would like the Fan Advisory Board to maybe answer. Before we get there, I've known you for a while now, and one of the funniest things I've seen in one of the most unfunniest periods of the club's history is Richard Masters in Parliament squirming. And you, my friend, was sitting behind him in an Everton jumper and shaking your head at him. What was that day like?
That was amazing that day because that was on a Tuesday, I think it was, and I had only made the decision on the Sunday to do it and bought a train ticket on the Sunday. We'd been having a fan engagement session at Everton with Andy Burnham and Steve Rotherham, and I'd been talking to Andy Burnham and found out that Andy Burnham wasn't going to be able to go because he was abroad. So I thought, well, there needs to be an Everton presence there. So, so just made a decision and did it. Got very, very sick during that day, and on the Monday, I had to go to a meeting the Monday night. Didn't get home till midnight. I was shattered. And honestly, I had to drag myself out of bed. I was so ill. I had such a bug that day. And that's why people would have seen me midway through just go off, because I'd been having a coughing fit.
Right, okay.
And while I was off in the loo, I was getting texts. People were saying, get back in there, get back in there. They're talking about Everton.
There was people who supported different clubs who were watching this going like, oh my God, who's that woman? Perfectly positioned. Was that just by chance, or did you pull a few strings?
I did shift over a little bit because somebody from the Fab text me and said, oh God, we can see half of you. We can only see half of you. I moved over a little bit. But I said to my niece, I was going down there, I said, and I'm damn well determined I'm going to wear an Everton shirt.
Brilliant.
I said, because I want the Premier League to know that we care about this. Yeah. It matters a great deal. And I want them to know that we're there. So I will be wearing an Everton shirt. Of course, I had to cover it up and then expose it when I got in there.
Oh, no, we're glad you did, because it was just an unbelievable presence. I mean, to have somebody sitting there... Yeah. I'm not just saying this because you're here, obviously knows what they're doing and is connected in a way to the club as well, to be sitting there, blue colours, as he squirmed. Did he see you? Did he say anything?
Oh, absolutely, you damn right. And his phone was bleeping the whole time and quietly, but you could see it. But the bizarre thing was, I'd turned up there early. I was waiting outside because I wanted to catch some of the committee members as they were coming in to tell them. I'd printed off some little flyers and said, this is what Everton means. This is what we do in the community. We've got the hub, we've got the wellness centre, we've got the free school, all of the good things that Everton do in the community. It was important that there was people that sitting around there knew why. It was more than just football that was suffering over what the Premier League had done. So I'd got there very early, and he was there, and he came with an entourage, and I actually thought as they walked in, they'd all sit behind him. And they all went in before. I walked in, he's sitting there, his entourage all sitting on the back row. I thought, right, okay. there you go.
It was so funny. It was so, like I said, there was people from different clubs who were fans who were tweeting about it. I think this is a good chance because we may have new listeners and viewers here on this show. Do you want to explain exactly what the Everton Fan Advisory Board? What are you guys? What do you do?
Yeah, there are 11 of us. We are all fan elected. There are 4 of us who are directly elected by fans in an open vote, and there are 7 reserve groups. Slightly changed now. We going forward. There'll be 5 directly elected. One of whom is a member of the FSA. We've always had a member of the FSA, but it's not a reserve group. The reserve groups are the Heritage Society, Everton Disabled Society Supporters Club, the Women's Supporters Club Committee. I know I'm going to forget somebody, I'm sorry. But anyway, 6 reserve groups and 5 directly elected fan representatives. We meet with the club. We meet every month ourselves online, and we meet with the club 4 times a year. And in between that time, we have fan engagement sessions. We gather up questions from fans. We take those to the club. We always publish the questions we're going to put to the club, and we always publish the answers. We promise to do that, and we do it. We also have drop-in sessions every single home game before, or every weekend game. We try for every night time as well. Before the games for at least 2 hours, we're in St Luke's Church, and we have a drop-in session. And the Heritage Society, who have the space upstairs, have kindly made space for us to be able to be up there and meet the folks. Pablo, our comms lead, is there all the time, and then the rest of us, when we can get there, we take turns to just go up and be around as well to take questions from the fans.
So you can act, for lack of a better phrase, you can act as a middleman between the supporters and the people who run the football club.
I always say we are the conduit between the fans and the club. Anybody can write to fan services, they can send emails, etc. But they come speak to us. They can speak to us in person. They can get a feel for what we are able to do and what we're not able to do. Stuff we can't influence, like signings and things like this, or pies and pints. That would be the fans forum take up things for matchday engagement. Supporters club would take up issues like away travel and ticketing and things like that. Overarching, we can bring these things to the club, but on a day-to-day basis. We've got boundaries between what the FAB does and what those clubs do. We won't step on the toes of the representative groups. They've got their own work to do. They elect their own leaders, chairs, leads, and then they bring the group's issues to the FAB meetings every month.
I think as a supporter, I think it's important that we have you guys, and I think it's important that, I know there's some meetings scheduled tomorrow on Wednesday, so we're going to talk about that. It's important that fans can ask you, and it could be that supporters can ask you a question that you can't answer, and you just say we can't. We'll put you in the direction of where you can. And I think it's important that we have a voice. Now, I'll never criticise supporters. I am one of the people who've been angry at times the past few years. I have not appreciated people at the football club. I've thought they've been out of the depth, and it's been important then to have you guys, and I'm sure the club thought that as well, for you to maybe calm the waters, then take my concerns, which would be very different at 5:10 on a Saturday, to what you can word it on at 7:30 on a Tuesday. Have you found the past couple of years, because of the disconnect between the club and supporters, to have been a difficult time for the FAB?
Well, obviously, we're all fans as well. That's number one. We are only on the FAB because we're fans. So we've felt all the same anger and frustration as every other fan. We've been angry with decisions made by the board, made by the manager, made by anybody. There are various things that will frustrate the life out of you, that you want to be in a position to hopefully try to influence. And I think that's what drives all of us to try and get onto the FAB, to say, I love this club, and I've followed the club all of my life, and I can see where things are going wrong, and I'd like to be part of the solution to get it right. We all want a better Everton. That's what we all want. Our first season was extremely difficult. Fans didn't know us. They didn't know what we were doing. There was a level of scepticism. You know, are you just going to be a mouthpiece for the club?
I was one of those fans, Julie, who thought this is just going to be an exercise from the football club. It's going to be Bill and Farhad are putting the shields up, and I thought that.
Couldn't be further from the truth. Hopefully, as you found out now, I mean, a lot of the stuff we do, don't get me wrong, we've got a very good relationship with the club, and we need to have. There are lots of fans around the country forming in FABs and trying to form FABs. I know we'll touch on that later, but there are a lot of FABs around the country who are not nearly as lucky as we are. They have club directors and employees and appointees foisted upon them. We're properly, truly independent, and the club recognise the value in that, and we're lucky that they do, and we've got a very good relationship with them.
No, I think again I don't speak for the majority or for anyone really, but I think the fans have come round from that initial phase of who are these guys, because I see the interactions that you guys do on Twitter with fans, and I see the reports that you publish, and I think that the fans do appreciate having you guys there. I think it's important. You are 3 years in.
Yeah.
How is it developing? How's it going to go forward?
We started from a very early stage to form groups within groups. So we've got subcommittees, and we also have temporary working groups that work up. For instance, we started up a working group to deal with the PSR charges and the appeals section. You know, we wrote the infamous witness statement. Now that set a precedent in football. There were some quarters that asked us not to do it and said it would set a precedent, and we said, well, that's exactly why we're doing it. We want to set a precedent. We want to say, we want fans' voices to be heard at last, and we want fans from other clubs to know that, you know, it's possible for you to do this. If you feel your club's being treated badly by those who oversee it, then you should have a voice to be able to say that. So we've got these groups now. We've just set up our series of priorities for the next season. Every year we decide what our priorities are going to be. Obviously, with what's going on at the moment, we've got priorities that include ownership, include commercial aspects of the club, and how the club commercialises itself and takes advantage of the commercial opportunities with it that come with that, but not where it disadvantages the fans. It shouldn't be at the expense of the fans. Football clubs are able to raise a lot of revenue these days, and it's not as simple as, well, we can put prices up for fans and that's where we'll get the revenue. Clever clubs realise that there's revenue to be got in other directions, in other quarters, and if they are good enough and they've got the right conscience and they're in touch with their fans on the ground, they'll know what the fans expect of them. So we'd be having groups that will deal with that. We've got groups. One of our priorities also is fan engagement. My particular priority is FAB networks. So I work with other FABs of other clubs up and down the country. We put out from time to time, and will indeed, in the short term, be putting out so the fans know, and we'll be introducing tomorrow to the fans who attend the session what our priorities are. Well,
let's talk about tomorrow. So we're recording this on Wednesday. I thought this was a good time to get out. It's not going to age too much, and it's going to be present. There's engagement sessions on Wednesday. Can you talk about what they are, how fans can? I think over on Twitter, AFC_fan advisory. That's the main contact really on Twitter. Can people reach out there and find out more?
We're having a fan engagement session tomorrow for the British and European fans. There'll be other fan engagement sessions then for our Asia Pacific fans, and for our Americas, and the Americas would be late at night, around midnight. The Asia Pacific would be the following morning. So we've got fans all over the world, as you know. It's a huge. I've just got back from America, and I can't even tell you the number of Everton fans I bumped into while I was on holiday. So those are coming up Wednesday, Thursday. Fans need to just go online to Twitter, as you said, EFC_fan advisory board. Our website is EFC-fanadvisoryboard.com. You register for it. There's a selection of questions you can answer. You don't have to answer the questions. If you just simply want to go on and register, you can do that. But answering the questions that have been put out there will help us to give us an idea of what it is the fans are wanting to know, and what they want to know from the club and from us as the fan advisory board. Our guest of honour tomorrow will be Dan Mice, the architect of Bramley-Moore, so we're very excited to have him come on board, and he has agreed to take questions as well. Prior to that, we will be just asking questions of the fans. We'll be talking about some of the other stuff we're getting engaged in, like the Stop Exploiting Loyalty. We work very closely with some other fan groups. We work with West Ham. West Ham worked with Spurs to start this campaign about ticketing at their own grounds, and we're very happy to support that as well. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow at the fan engagement session.
Well, sounds really interesting. I'm going to be on one of them, just listening and watching. I found it was beneficial for me, never mind as someone who does a podcast, it was beneficial for me as an Evertonian to just listen last time and just read the room. So if anyone's like me and just wants to go and listen, get over to the website and the Twitter, like Julie just said, and get the information, register. It's no better time to really talk to the club through these guys, which is what these guys are here for. It's a two-way street. The club can talk back, perhaps some minutes come out, don't they, when you do meet with the club, and it's all very transparent. I've got a couple of questions that I personally wanted to ask. Done a little bit of research on you. So you've been supporting the FSA's Stop Exploiting Loyalty campaign. Do you want to explain what that is and what you're actually doing to support it?
That came about as an initiative between the West Ham now have a FAB. That it was the Hamish United and their Independent Supporters Committee, and various other fan groups set up the West Ham FAB, and they support also the Tottenham Hotspur fan groups. And both of those clubs have taken a decision this year to get rid of concessions for fans. They were appalled about it. They went out and sought support from other fan groups, and they got it from us, of course. West Ham have stopped concessions for elderly, and they are also working a process where they are segregating the ground into various areas where those concessions that people had are not available anymore. Now, it's important to say that this is not an issue that affects us at the moment. Mm-hmm. We haven't got this issue. We've got the pricing that we know about already this year. We don't know what's going to happen when we move to Bramley-Moore. That hasn't been decided yet. So this is very much not an issue affecting Everton at the moment. Price hikes and the lack of concessions. However, we think it's really important as a FAB to support other fan groups. Mm. We struggled last year when we were campaigning against the PSR rules with the Premier League. We struggled to get support from some other clubs, fan groups, because they thought that we were just doing it in our own interest because of the PSR. And we tried to say at the time, and I hope this confirms the fact now, that we weren't doing what we did just for Everton. It was for the whole of football. Whatever happens that's to the detriment of fans will eventually spread throughout the whole football family. So on this occasion, we're showing here outright now, up front, that Everton FAB are supporting other clubs' fan groups, even on an issue that is not currently affecting us.
I think that's really interesting, what you've just said there, and it's something I probably didn't quite take in at the time, is that other fan groups didn't support us last year, and here you guys are supporting other clubs.
Well, here's the thing: we were at Anfield. I was at Anfield during the game against West Ham, holding out the banner. Yeah. I haven't been to Anfield for a long time for various reasons, but I was there supporting our West Ham friends in the campaign and I was helping actually Dave Kelly out on the food banks as well, but we combined that with I combined that Juicy with supporting West Ham for the fans stop promoting loyalty fund. Some of the fans were coming up, some of the Liverpool fans were coming up and asking us, I had my Everton badge on, by the way, but some of the Liverpool fans were coming up and asked what it was about, because it had the FSA badge. It didn't have a Liverpool or an Everton badge on. But it's about fans. It's not about particular clubs. It's about fans, and it's about us just supporting, what's right and what's ethical in terms of the way fans should be treated. We're all extremely loyal to our clubs, but loyalty does come at a price. No one should just take loyalty for granted.
No, no matter who you support. Like you said there, what West Ham and Tottenham attempted to do would have an effect on anybody who wanted to introduce their children to football or continue to sit with their elderly parents at football games, and that's what going the game is mainly all about. It's about you. The whole day you're meeting people, or you're taking family and having a nice time out. Whether you win or lose, you spend time with your family. You've got away from work and stuff. So I think that work really commendable that you joined in, and I really wish you all the best with continuing to do that. Let's hope it doesn't cross over too much into where you really need to defend it. But we do have a little question on that later from a listener. One thing I did know you'd mentioned is priorities for this season have been agreed. Can you expand on what they are and let us know?
Yeah, so the priorities again. I think I expanded on the commercialisation, on the new ownership and what that will mean, and Everton making the most of commercial opportunities available to them. We've got some very, very good, very skilled people on the FAB. We've got people who've worked for huge companies all over the world. They've got really, really good. Our skills include business transformation, law, insurance, construction. I mean, we've got really, really good, very skilled people who can take on board a priority, lead the project on that priority, liaise with the club and liaise with other bodies outside the club to help us if we need help, because we're not just saying to the club, we agree with this or we don't agree with that. We'd say we don't agree with that because, and here's what we think is the solution. So hopefully we've got the skills on board to do that. The other priorities we've got, obviously the women's game. We're very supportive of the women's game and what's going on in Walton Hall Park. The National Fab Network, fan engagement, all of the areas that we have identified as priorities have all got a lead. I particularly lead in the National Fab Network, but we've got other people, including the people who've only just joined us this year. The two people who've joined us, Mark and Sarah, have also got projects to lead in the Fab. So everybody's involved in it.
Sounds busy.
And we'll talk more about it tomorrow on the engagement session. And
this is why I asked you to come on, and this is why I hope anyone who's watching on the video channel or listening on the audio channel, again, EFC_fan advisory board over on X or Twitter, attend these sessions. You may not take anything from it, but it's not going to hurt to go and have a look at what these guys are doing. The middleman between us and the football club, and get involved in it.
We need questions. We need people to attend to give us the questions. If they don't come and tell us what they want from the club or what questions they want to ask the club, we can't pass those questions on to the club.
And if you're anything like me, you've got plenty of questions because the direction at the football club at the minute can go anywhere, and we need a bit of.
And we do promise to pass them on, and we do promise to publish the responses as well.
I'm looking forward to tomorrow, and then we'll put something on our Twitter as well over at Across the Park PC to remind fans to go over and have a look. And then when you publish, the little bits and bobs that come out of it, we'll publish it as well on ours. One thing I did notice you were doing again on my research is you were working with parliamentarians really to monitor the upcoming football governance bill. Yeah. Now that sounds really important. Can you expand on that? What you're doing? Whereabouts are you with that? Well,
the other part of me going down to visit Parliament that people didn't see on the screen was I go down and we have Tony Sampson as our vice chair, and he leads on the project about the where we're monitoring the football governance bill. I put out, if anybody goes on our website, I actually put an article out there more than a year ago now, it's still there, explaining in plain English what the fan-led review is about and what was brought about the football governance bill. Anything that's got govern or government or parliament in, it scares people off. Go onto our website, go onto the FAB website and have a look at the article that's on there. It's just called the fan-led review in plain English. But it was about to be introduced. It was put on a back burner. Well, it was introduced. It was put on a back burner because of the change of government, and it will be reintroduced because it had cross-party agreement. So all parties in Parliament wanted it to go ahead before the election. It will come out again. The Labour Party have said they are going to reintroduce it. We are still speaking to members of Parliament and to peers, and particularly we are always pressuring our local MPs to get involved and to attend the meetings for it. We don't think it's suitable in its present format. It needs some amendments.
Okay.
It doesn't mention fans nearly enough, and it certainly doesn't concentrate on the need for fan advisory boards to be independent. And at Everton FAB, we feel very, very strongly that fan advisory boards, it says on the tin, they are fan advisory boards. They shouldn't be quasi football directors boards, friends, colleagues, other people that they appoint on. Fan advisory boards should consist of fans who've been directly elected by other fans.
I agree, yeah.
And there's no mention of that in the bill. They do say that there should be FABs, but they don't go into detail, and we think that needs to go into detail. We also campaigned in the last period to say that the football regulator also should have oversight of the PSR rules. Now, with what's happened in the courts lately, who knows how long those PSR rules are going to stay in place? They're clearly not fit for purpose, in our view. They may already be under review, but if anything replaces them or if they stay in place themselves, we think the football regulator needs to oversee this, and that's not in the bill either. The Premier League cannot be marking its own homework, appointing bodies that become judge and jury over clubs, and we've seen the complete inconsistency with some of the sanctions that have been laid on clubs. It needs a lot of work. And it needs a regulator, and we want the football regulator to have oversight over that. So we will be campaigning for that bill to be amended to include at least the two areas I've just spoken about.
I think the Manchester City case at the minute can really affect that, can't it? Because we don't know what's going to come out of that. Already we've heard that the Premier League claims a victory, the Manchester City claims a victory. There's going to have to be amendments to this and that. I think that's got the potential to really affect a lot of things, including this. Is that fair? Yeah,
but what's happened, with Man City and with us, and again with Nottingham Forest as well, these incidences show how badly written, how badly drafted those rules are. And they are quasi-legal But you know, if somebody tried to get something through Parliament, a new law through Parliament, and it was written as these PSR rules, it would never come into law.
No.
You know that. I know that. They're so badly drafted, and they're so open to interpretation by people. They shouldn't be. There should be a standard set of guidelines like the courts have to follow. So should the Premier League's convened panels have to follow.
And again, it's important to say that you guys are doing this with the fan and the supporter in the forefront of your mind, and that's great. Again, for me, I can only give you my examples of why I don't like things. I had to tell my little boy, who was 5 at the time last season, why his football club had an asterisk next to it on the league table. That's not a conversation daddy and lad should be having.
No.
We had Patrick Boyland, a really great journalist from The Athletic. He was on the show a few weeks back. He said he almost had to restudy finances to continue to cover his football club.
Yeah.
And all this is just... So it's great that you're talking like that, and it's great that we do have a voice. Everyone's got different opinions, but I think everyone almost can agree that when 3 teams almost now, if you include Manchester City, are gaining victories from the Premier League on appeals and in courts, it's not, something isn't right. The rules and things aren't right.
No, they're definitely not right, and they need looking at, and they need oversight, and that's what we want.
Good. I'm not going to ruin tomorrow by giving you too many questions, but I did open our Twitter inbox for a couple of questions. First one from Danny. He wants to know, it's quite funny, this one. Did anyone from the Fan Advisory Board meet the 777 group? And if so, were they as shady in person as they seemed to us?
The only person from the Fan Advisory Board that met a representative of the 777 group was Dave Kelly, our chair. Yeah. And if anybody goes on YouTube and just searches that, they will see that. And also on our website, there's a video. I think we took a couple of videos at St. Luke's at the drop-in just afterwards, and Dave spoke about that. Anybody that follows goes on our website and reads the minutes of our meetings, that will bring them up to speed. Dave didn't make any comments about being shady
as Danny
or
puts
anything.
it,
To be fair, Dave met one of the representative, Dan Dronsfield. I always get that.
They sent a PR guy around and need to speak to people.
He was quite senior. He was on their leadership team, and he turned out to be a football. I think he was a Barnsley fan, and he turned out to be a supporter himself. And I'd known I'm going to say highs and lows, but he'd known the lows of being a football fan, and he was, by all accounts, the meeting was very congenial. But none of us met any of the rest of them. And I've certainly not met any of them. I've seen a couple of them at the ground when I've been, when they were sitting in the director's box.
Well, the group itself almost doesn't exist anymore. They've just gone
Josh
boom.
Wander left, didn't he? And it was
they
I think he was the first one to resign, and they look like they're on a downward spiral. But I don't know enough about that group.
Yeah.
I didn't take that much notice once they were out of the picture.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And all of us breathed, I think, a sigh of relief because of the uncertainty that all of that brought, and the unpopularity as well. So the answer to your question, to get back to your question about shadiness, I can't answer it. I never met the guy, but Dave did. Have a look on our website and our YouTube channel, and you'll see.
Okay, and Helen over on the Twitter, it's a good follow-up, really. Are there any plans in place to meet the Friedkin Group? Now, the Friedkin Group haven't officially taken over yet. Yeah. That maybe wouldn't stop you reaching out. Is there any plans to maybe reach out and talk to them?
Certainly we will reach out. There aren't plans at the moment for us to do it, and I couldn't see that happening anyway before anyone had signed on the dotted line. Okay. We did meet with 777 before they'd signed on the dotted line, and we know what happened afterwards. So I think the Friedkin Group and the club would probably rather wait until that signature's on the paperwork. We'd love to meet Dan Friedkin. We'd love to meet the Freaking Group. We will, of course, be inviting them to meet the FAB because, you know, we feel we're an integral part of the Everton family as well as the club. So the Everton family is the club, the fans, and the fan groups, and that's all of the fan groups, not just us. But yes, we certainly will be asking for a meeting with them, and hopefully we'll get one.
And then hopefully the reason for that meeting is you then engage with the likes of me, a supporter, and I'm more clued up. So that's the purpose, isn't it, of what you guys...
Exactly.
So I've done 2 questions there on sort of ownership, and I've plucked 2 about Bramley-Moore, and then we'll leave the rest for you guys to officially talk about tomorrow on your engagement meetings. But John has contacted us on Twitter, and it touches upon something we've just spoke about already with the Stop Exploiting Loyalty campaign. John has said he's had rumours that the club are going to hike the season ticket prices up. He understands that Bramley-Moore needs to be a revenue driver. Will you be meeting with the club to sort of talk about concerns like that? Season ticket prices, is that going to be on the agenda for you?
Of course, we always talk about matters like that when we meet with the club. And when we've got our next meeting is in November with the club. And matters like that will, of course, be on the table. We don't know, we've not been told of, and this is honestly, we've not been told of any price increases. We do, like I touched on earlier, we do accept that the club needs to have one eye on the revenue that it can get, but we also know that Bramley-Moore, it's a little bit of gold dust, isn't it, for the club, really. It's an iconic building. It's in a fabulous spot. I understand that they are going to be able to, put on events other than football. Yeah. But of course, they'll be limited because of the time that there is available of that. So it can't be like an O2 or anything like that. But we do know that they're going to be able to get a return on that. I don't know what that will be. And we do want them to be able to maximise the revenue when we get new owners and when we move to Bramley-Moore Dock. However, we don't think that should be at the expense of loyal fans. So what we're always cognizant of is the fact that these fans who are going now, and the fans, or the shareholders, the season ticket holders rather, who are going to transfer over to Bramley-Moore Dock, these are fans that were going way back in the day when we couldn't fill Goodison Park. Yeah, I agree. When there were half, when you could walk up and buy a ticket on the night. That mustn't be forgotten. The club, I say the club, I don't have evidence of it of our club, but there are clearly some clubs that give an impression that they could do without their fans, that they could just get by with, the hospitality, and they've got so much revenue and they can get so much money from, wealthy people and overseas visitors and everything. And that should never be the case with any club, and it certainly should never become the case with our club, because there are loyal fans there who've been going their entire lives. There will be fans going to Bramley-Moore who've been going for 70 or 80 years, and they were there through all the lean times as well. And like I said earlier, that mustn't be taken for granted. That's a sense of loyalty that deserves to be rewarded. And you reward loyalty by having one eye on the affordability issues for the fans that need to go, and another eye on the future, because those fans are now bringing their children and their grandchildren. So I'll reiterate, we don't know anything about what the cost is going to be. We've not heard anything about any price increases, but we would and always will, we do and always will, just remind the club that, that loyalty the loyalty that the fans are showing now needs to be rewarded.
Yeah, I think it's important that I reiterate there on John's question. He does say it's a rumour. Like, there's going to be people at the club now who are thinking that nothing's been announced. I think what has been announced is the process of how you can obtain next year's season ticket if you're a 23 years season ticket holder or a 5-year.
Well,
Prices itself, I can understand why people are scared. I can just understand why people are scared, so I thought it was right to maybe just push it in.
I just said, I spend half of my time emailing back people, and some of the people who have emailed me and got emails back will know this. Emailing people back to say, please don't consider rumours that you've heard, rumours and leaks. Don't believe anything. They're not reliable until you hear from the club and or us. Sometimes we've heard things from the club and we've said, the fans need to know this, and the club said, fine, you go, and they're happy for us to share information that they give, and they're happy for us to share it with the fans. So as soon as we know, which might be the same time as everybody else knows, we'd be happy to share that. And if there are any concerns after that's known, then we will, of course, as we always do, take that back to the club. But we have heard nothing about price rises and what the prices are going to be when we move to Bramley-Moore Dock.
And the last question, there was a couple of people, Wayne and Tom, who sort of asked the same point, really. It was about the season ticket handover from Goodison to Bramley-Moore. What do you know about that? Is it like for like? If you sit in a halfway line at Goodison, and do you automatically get that at Bramley-Moore? And then the second question from Tommy there, was the club announced that you'll be able to see your seat virtually. Will there be any plans, or can you ask if maybe large groups of supporters can visit Bramley-Moore before they go in for the first game?
We can certainly ask it, and anybody wants to come on this session tomorrow night, put that as a question and it will go to the club. There's no problem about that. We can ask any question any fan wants us to ask of the club, and they've only got to ask us and we'll pass it on to the club. We get a lot of questions, obviously. A lot of them are duplicated, so we just categorise them and we join them together and we send them off to the club, and we will. With regard to the Bramley-Moore, it's a question that I've asked myself, like for like. When I think about it, and having seen the layout of Bramley-Moore Dock and seeing that fabulous vista that there is from the south stand, which is going to be the Gladys Street stand, I'm gutted because I sit the other end. Hopefully, my intention is that I will still sit when I move, I'll move to the north end, because my understanding is that is going to be equivalent to the park end.
That's where I am as well,
and I'm very, very jealous of what the people in the Gladys Street South End are going to get, because it's such a better view. But so in that respect, there's not a like for like. I've had several emails through of people saying, "Oh, but we've sat with this group of people for years, and we should all be able. Everybody should be able to just be lifted like that, and with the same group of people." But it's fair to say everybody doesn't want the same thing. I sit with people at the moment who want to move to a different stand. Let's not forget, a lot of people who sit in the park end do that because there are girders and there's obstructed views.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't expect that everybody who sits in the park stand is going to want to sit in the north stand when they move. There are a lot of people that I've spoken to who want to move and watch side on. I quite like where I am. I'm up behind one end, and I get to see a real lot of goal action. So personally, for me, that's great. But I sit with people who have no intention of sitting, of wanting a seat that's in a similar position. They just sit there. They just want a good view.
Yeah.
And every seat in the new stadium at Bramley-Moore Dock is going to have a really, really good view. I remember thinking the first time I went to the King's Stadium, Leicester's Stadium, thinking, what a brilliant view. Everywhere you go, I don't know if you've been there, but everywhere you go, there is a great view. I thought, oh God, if only we could have this. And we're getting it. Every seat will have a good view. So I don't even know whether there is such a thing as a like for like. There's a stand for stand, if you like, that would be South Stand and North Stand. But the other two, the East and the West, because they're all there's going to be, there are not going to be any particular boxes, hospitality boxes, I understand. I don't know what that's going to be like. I don't know, but I do know that wherever anybody sits, they'll have a great view.
I've got lots of questions about that, and this is why these sessions that you're doing tomorrow are so invaluable, because people, like off the top of my head there, I'm thinking, well, you've just said that you'd like to move from the new Park End to the new Gladys Street, but maybe you can't. But maybe you can, because that new Gladys Street is doubling in capacity. Yeah. Can we ask the question of that, what the process is? So the little kids who like sitting by the tunnel because they get cheered at the players, are they going to be moved to the new family enclosure, which is maybe not by the tunnel? These are the questions people can ask you tomorrow. So let's just reiterate, we've got fan engagement sessions tomorrow, which is Wednesday. We go over to EFC_fan advisory board. There's more information on there, and this is your last chance to plug it. Why are these so important for fans to attend?
They're really important for us. We've got a lot of questions as a FAB ourselves, and we've got our own communities and people we travel with going to and from the game. So we know a lot of questions and get a lot. But every time we have a fan engagement session, we get questions that we weren't expecting, that we'd never thought of ourselves, and they're really important questions. And also, I think fans get to hear from other fans. I think when we travel to the match and we go in our own little groups, we're in a kind of echo chamber, and those people that we travel to all think exactly the same as us. They all thought somebody was a great manager, or they all thought somebody was a dreadful manager, that sort of thing. You don't really get to hear what other fans think. Some fans are protesters, some fans aren't. Some fans want to get to the match 5 minutes before, sometimes. Some people want to get there a couple of hours before. So you get to hear from other fans who see the club from a different perspective, and that's really important, and it's really interesting. But the most important thing is you get to ask questions directly. You're not going directly to the club. You are coming directly to the club's fan board, who will take your questions then to the club, and we will get answers, and we will publish the answers.
I look forward to it. I'll be there myself tomorrow in the meetings, or today if you're watching and listening on a Wednesday. You've gone from shaking your head at Richard Masters to coming on Across the Park podcast and answering some questions. Thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you.
Guys, I hope that was as informative for you as it was for me. I can't plug enough. I asked Julie to come on and talk about this because I do believe in it. I think it's important that fans maybe abroad or fans who are online based, because wherever they live, can have a voice, can ask questions. So please get over to these sessions with the fan advisory board. They are really, really, really good, and they're important for the fan advisory board, like Julie just said. Coming up on this channel next week is a big one. I am back down at Goodison Park talking to, I can't say who yet, but it's going to be one of the Everton women's team as we plug 2 games coming up at Goodison Park. Like I touched on our last show, the women were so unlucky against Leicester. They were so unlucky against West Ham. They're putting in good performances against big sides, and they haven't got the rub of the green. Really important that Goodison Park is as busy as it can be, and it's a great chance to take people to Goodison Park as well. Like I said, there's a men's waiting list. There's not a waiting list for the women. Get down there at Goodison Park for the Chelsea and the Liverpool games. I'm going to be talking more about that at Goodison Park next week. I cannot wait. But I've really enjoyed this show with Julie and the fan advisory board. Thank you for listening. EFC_fan advisory board. Get over there, find out some more information. But until next week, up the toffees.